Today on Fortnite, I got second place. I was so close.
Mom, will you get me a snack?
Mom! It's time for adult conversation. With me, your host, Brandy Ferner. Hello, Adult Conversation podcast listeners. Do I have a generous gift for you today, especially during a time where we could all use some laughs and lightness? School started, oh my God. In this episode, I'm talking with past Bachelor contestant Ashley Spivey. She was from Brad Womack's season back in the day, and lucky for us, she's an open book as she spills the Bachelor Nation tea, like all of it. My jaw was on the floor many times in this interview, and I laughed so hard during it and then editing it, reliving it all. And I can't wait for you to join me in basking in Bachelor secrets about how the girls really felt about Brad, the show's torturous methods to make great TV, what it's like to live in a house full of women whose periods have synced up and they're all dating the same lame dude, and the deets about Chris Harrison. Is he a kind-hearted romantic that cares for his flock, or is he shady? Oh my God, the answer to that is so good. In addition to dishing about reality TV and dropping a bomb that leaves me speechless, Ashley also talks about how being on The Bachelor changed her, how she changed the show, and what life is like beyond the rose ceremonies. So join me for the most dramatic episode ever. Also, Ashley and I recorded this right at the beginning of quarantine, when New York City, where she lives, was being hit hard by COVID. When you hear my voice in this episode, listen to how much zest I have for life pre-pandemic. This is what I sound like when I have autonomy and balance. It's like I'm high, or maybe I was just so excited to get the real on Harrison. And real quick, writer friends, or those who want to be writers and friends, you can now work with me. Do you have a writing project in your head or on your computer, or a mix of both, and wish there was someone who could help you organize your thoughts, tap into your voice, find your writing process, and motivate you to keep going? Like a doula, but for writing? Are you looking for someone who will meet you where you're at, ask probing questions about your story, and give you honest feedback and ideas that further your project while also understanding the vulnerability that is sharing your work? Hi! Since my book launched, I've organically found myself working with a handful of writing clients in this way, and it's gone so well that this is now a thing I am offering. You can go to my website, adultconversation.com/workwithme for more info, including testimonials wherein people lie about my good nature because I blackmailed them. On to the show. So today on the podcast, we have a super exciting guest who I'm hoping can give us an inside look at The Bachelor, like the real. I have so many questions. Her name is Ashley Spivey, and she's a former Bachelor contestant from one of Brad Womack's seasons. So thank you for being here today, Ashley, to answer all of my wildest questions.
I'm so excited to do this with you. I hope that I can answer all of them. I mean, it was a while back that I was on. Like, I think it's almost been 10 years at this point.
Yeah, so you might have a little bit of the the nostalgia and some of the harsh edges maybe soften a little bit. Does that happen?
Maybe. I mean, at this point too, I feel like I've been enough of a critic of the franchise as well that maybe I have some other answers.
Okay. Yeah, see, this is beautiful because what this is like is I don't mean to make everything about birth or parenting, but it's like with a birth story, you have a story that exists right after it happens, and then the story changes as the years go on. And so we're going to get your processed, metabolized version of what it was like looking back to be on The Bachelor. So I'm actually, I think, more excited about this version than if you were like fresh off the Bachelor boat.
Yeah, because I feel like whenever people first get off, they still think producers are their best friends, or they're still kind of basking in the glow of being a newly crowned reality contestant. So I feel like I'm looking at it through jaded eyes, but also
Yes. Yes. Okay. You are just like, you are getting me so excited about this because these are the kind of discerning eyes that I want to see it through. Oh my God. Okay. And I want to let people know that we met because you have a popular book club called Spivey's Book Club. And I did a takeover of your Instagram account with my book. And honestly, when I did that, I didn't know you were part of Bachelor Nation. I only found that out, I think, during that day or something. But when I found out, of course, I asked you if you would give me the dirt on what it's really like to be on the show. And to my surprise, you said yes. So again, I just bow down to you for being here for us. And also, I did some research before our interview, and the more I learn about you, the more I love you. You are outspoken but kind, and you're an activist, and you're an open book about fertility and abortion and women's issues. Like, you are a perfect fit here. So we're now BFFs. I hope you don't mind.
Not at all. And I love that, like, you didn't know that I was on The Bachelor. I love that enough time has passed now that I am known more for creating a book club than being on a reality show. So it doesn't hurt me at all, like, when people don't know that I was on the show.
Yeah, maybe it's even like you're making a new life for yourself, even though that other one has its benefits. I'm sure it's like, oh, you can exist outside of The Bachelor and exist and have people know you. Like, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I always tell people if they ever ask me after they get off the show, I'm like, it's okay to make your way in the world without relying on the franchise to keep you well known. I'm surprised that more contestants don't do that, but I guess like the lure of being on Bachelor in Paradise is too great.
Oh my God. I have like a whole section. I have like an entire outline about Bachelor in Paradise because it's the like more garbagey version of The Bachelor, which is anytime reality TV can get lower, I'm always in, which I'm sorry. That's probably awful for people who are on it to hear. But before we get to the goods, what do you think the listeners need to know about you?
I kind of think you just covered it all. Whenever you said you looked me up, I wanted to say that I think sometimes I can get pigeonholed whenever people learn that I was on a reality show. But I hope in the years since I've been on the show, I've shown people that there is more to me, whether it's me being a critic of the show, whether it's I've ran some charity campaigns. I like to get financial support to teachers. I just hope that people can see that there's more to me after this episode.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I could tell that from the beginning. I think the fact that you had a book club is already like, oh, that's fascinating. But absolutely, the more that I looked at your stuff and read about you, I was like, oh, this is somebody who's using their platform and is like helping other people with this really important voice and like vulnerable. Some of the stuff that you talk about, like especially abortion stuff and fertility, that's not the neatly packaged Bachelor thing. That's not the what was Carly and what who was the guy
Evan.
Yeah, that's not the Carly and Evan story. That's not the Jade and Tanner story,
No.
you know? So I really appreciate honesty and putting one's neck out. So one thing that I wanted to ask you is, did you sign an NDA for a certain amount of time, or are you just allowed to talk about anything?
So you have to sign a contract, and that contract lasts for a year after the show airs.
Okay.
So my contract is way up. I can talk about anything.
Okay, good. Okay. So, and remind us again, you were on it 10 years ago on Brad Womack's season, and how many rose ceremonies were you there for?
I actually finished 11th. So I don't even know how many rose ceremonies that would be. I did get the first impression rose, which is why I think I stick out in people's minds. And then also, my best friend on the show was also named Ashley, and they put us on a 2-on-1 together. And that's how I got eliminated because they put the two best friends in the house on a date together. And it was actually like very sad. But I think that rose ceremony sticks out in people's heads, or me getting eliminated sticks out in people's heads. And then I was up for Bachelorette, but I did not want it because I knew my best friend, the other Ashley, really, really wanted it. And she ended up becoming Bachelorette and then married JP, and I was in her TV wedding.
Oh my gosh. There's like, I am furiously like writing down, there's every word you say, there's like that opens up a whole new chamber of things, like the 2-on-1 date, which is the worst fate known to man, but then with your best friend, and then the fact that you're both named the same name. Oh, and then you got the first impression rose. That's like a big deal. Wow. Okay. So, but before I ask you about those, like I have to know some background of and I think a question that many people want to know is, did you first go on The Bachelor to find true love or for the experience and career opportunities? Or was it like a mix of both? How did you get drawn to it at first? And then what do you think most people are on there for?
Okay, so whenever I did it, people really did not become big celebrities. I think at that point, maybe the biggest celebrity to come off the show would be like Jillian Harris or Travis Stork, who ended up being on The Doctors, that show.
Yes.
But Jillian Harris was on, what was that home improvement show? Like Home Makeover?
Okay.
But you did not become like a social media sensation. Really, only Twitter was out at that point when I went on.
Yeah, right.
I think Instagram was just starting. So whenever I did it, I really wasn't thinking, I will become famous. But at the same time, the reason why I did it is I had moved up to New York with a boyfriend, and he wanted to quit his job in finance to become an actor. And I thought this was like really insane because he had this great job. But I ended up catching him in bed with another girl in our apartment. And I don't know why my mind went to this, but I was just like, you know what? I'm going to make it to TV before this asshole. And so I sent in my application to The Bachelor. And even before I caught him in bed with another girl, my dad had passed away probably 6 months before I applied for the show.
Wow.
So I had a combination of being in the Dead Dad Club, which the show really loves to exploit. And then also really wanted to like get back at my ex. And I think that they probably saw my application and were just like, this girl
She's perfect.
is emotionally unstable. Like, she will be the perfect person to get on here and like get really deep into her mind and exploit her. So
wow.
Yeah, they called me back like 30 minutes after they received my application.
You must have checked so many of the perfect boxes, like you said.
Oh yeah. And I even think you have to send in these pictures for one of the rounds that you make it through. And I went to Central Park and I stood in the middle of Fifth Avenue in a bikini and I got one of my friends to take pictures of me. So I think they were just like, yes, like either this girl is going to be super crazy or like super sad, but no matter what, she's going to be perfect.
Oh my gosh. I love all of this. So how do you feel about that looking back on it, that was why you got into it? Like, do you have embarrassment or regret, or are you like, hey, that's who I was at that age and it's totally fine? Or do you cringe at all looking back on it or watching it back?
I don't look back regretting anything. If anything, I think I was really kind of like stuck at a point in my life where I had moved up to New York. My dad had died. I had just, had this horrible relationship with this guy. I wasn't very happy actually with my job at that time. So I was hoping by doing something like this, going on the show, it would kind of jumpstart my life into something else.
Yeah.
So I chose to look at it like an adventure. And I tell people all the time that going on the show kind of did give me a second lease on life because I got a great edit. I made so many friends. I got a great edit. I only have positive things to say actually about going on the show.
Yeah, well, and so getting that edit, how hard is that? When you hear people talk about, I got a bad edit, as the viewer, we're always like, well, you gave them that material, so how is that the edit? But as somebody who does podcast editing and editing of writing, like I know you can leave things out that make somebody seem a certain way. And so is there this thing, like, is that something you guys, and maybe back then people weren't talking about it as much, but is that something that the contestants were like, oh, I hope I get a good edit? And how do you know if you're going to get a good edit or not?
You have to go on the show knowing, you have to be aware of what producers do. And so I think what happens is that you were assigned a producer about 2 months before you go on the show, and they will call you every night. They go very deep into what it is that makes you tick, things that will make you emotional, and they will use it against you later.
Exactly. Yes.
Anyone who is realistic about the experience should know that. It's whenever people go in and they're naive and they think that production is like their friend that I think they end up getting screwed over. And like, I would consider myself someone who likes to like drink and have fun.
Mm-hmm.
But whenever I got on the show, I knew that I could not go past a certain point of drinking or they were really going to mess with me.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. And I imagine in the background, there's somebody just pouring booze for everybody. Are they like pushing it on you guys, or is it there and you can have it, or are they like trying to grease the wheels here?
I have a couple of like alcohol related stories for my season. So the first one is that they asked me at one point what type of like liquor I would want stocked in the house. And I was joking and I said sweet tea vodka, which I don't know if you've ever had sweet tea vodka, but it's not something you can take as a shot. Like, it's definitely something you have to mix with other things.
Okay.
And the next morning when I came downstairs, there were like 12 bottles of sweet tea vodka. And at the rose ceremony, they were passing it out as a shot. And I was just like, wow, like, how did they not know this is not something you can take as a shot? Because it's not like sweet tea mixed with vodka. It's like a flavored vodka. So it's just as potent.
Oh my God. So you could have been like, I really like Everclear. And they're like, all right, everybody's doing a 40 ounce of Everclear. Like, they're pretty clear about what they're trying to get you guys to do, or to loosen those inhibitions so that you make good TV, it sounds like.
Right. And sometimes I will say that it's not like they're like, here, you should drink this. But sometimes I wasn't particularly comfortable on camera. So sometimes I was like, yeah, I need to have a couple of shots before I feel comfortable doing this. What was another story I was going to tell you? Oh, once we had this very awkward date at Brad's house, and it was a group date. So we were all supposed to be like sitting around a jacuzzi, like hanging out and having fun. And Brad was just one of those people who could never let loose.
Oh, God.
So production was just like, all right, we have to step in. We have to do something. So they started passing out tequila shots. And this was one of the times where I was like, okay, yes, I do need to actually be a little drunk in this situation.
Right.
And they started playing music, which that's a no-no on the show because it really messes with audio. So you will never hear, unless it's a concert date, you never hear music on the show. So
true, right.
And so they were playing music. They were letting us take tequila shots. Then it kind of like got crazy around the jacuzzi. But he like wouldn't take his sweatshirt off. And I don't know why, but that really bothered me. Like, who can sit in a jacuzzi with a sweatshirt? And I think it just...
As it should bother you.
Well, I was like, one, I can't even like look at his body. That's so disappointing. Two, he can't even like let loose enough to take off his sweatshirt. And it must have been the tequila, but I just kept on talking about it. And I think that's when producers were like, yeah, Ashley's not like into Brad. We have to like get her off.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So yes, this goes down to so many other avenues. Do you know who the Bachelor is going to be before you go on it? When do you find that out?
On my season, I actually found out as I was on the plane flying to LA.
Wow.
My best friend saw it on Reality Steve and she sent it to me, but I had not been watching The Bachelor for that long, so I had no idea who he was. And then they took my phone as soon as I got there, so it's not like I could even look up anything about him. And they wouldn't tell me anything about him.
Oh, wow. So you didn't even have like a, yes, that's the one I was hoping for, or like, oh, that guy's a total tool, which I feel like in the Bachelor world, 99.9% of them are the total tool.
Oh, yeah.
These guys are so boring. Nick Viall was, I think, the most interesting to me of the like later-ish ones. But I think how bummed are all these girls every single time they find out who this dude is and they're like, oh, that guy's the worst. And then they have to show up. So you didn't even know how to feel yet. And then when you did meet him, what was your initial take?
I kind of learned a little bit about him in the limo on the way over. And the vibe I was getting from the other girls is that he was an asshole because he had turned down 2 girls the last time he was on the season.
Right.
So I'm sitting there in the limo and I'm like, okay, so all of these girls are really upset at him. I'm going to play this different. And I acted like I had no idea what he had done. And then once I met him, I was like, okay, he's tall. I think I actually like grabbed his ass, which is like something I feel like very ashamed of now because I like preach really hard against stuff like that. But I just like froze in the moment. And like his butt is also like where just a normal hand placement would be because I'm very short and he's very tall. And I just froze and I just did that. And I think I called him like a tall drink of water.
Oh my God, you totally gave him a Me Too moment.
I did. And I'm so ashamed now. But so whenever I got inside, everyone was talking about that. So I just told myself, I'm going to use this to my advantage. When I talk to him, I'm not going to bring it up. And I'm just going to be like, I hope that this is something you learned from, and I'm willing to give you a second chance and whatever. And that's why I got the first impression rose, because I was the only person who wasn't being a jerk to him about him not picking anyone.
Yeah. Well, and so when you were doing that, like we were kind of using that as a strategy in your mind, like when you're on that, are you thinking, oh, I'm going to use this strategy or I'm going to use this take because I want this guy to like me and to see that I'm different? Or are you and everybody at this point just trying to hold on for a couple rose ceremonies so that you can like get your feet wet and see if you even like this guy?
I think that both of them are true.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that there's always a level of strategy. I think people go in saying, I would never use this as sort of like a competition, but it just happens naturally. Like he will be really into someone else, and no matter what, even if you're the most confident person in the world, you'll just be like, why does he like her and he doesn't like me?
Oh my gosh, it's so true. Yes. I can totally imagine, like, you don't even want the prize, but you're like, why doesn't he like me? I will make him like me.
Exactly. Yes. And then you know you're doing it and you're ashamed, but also you don't want to lose. You don't want to get eliminated.
This is why I love this show. It's so human. It preys on the most human basic instincts about like winning and like wanting to look good and be loved. It's like wanting to win and be loved at the same time. It's so fucked up and so great and the best TV ever.
It's so true. I mean, I even was thinking, I think I was 26 at the time. I think he was 38. So automatically I was kind of like, he's a little old for me.
Sure.
I don't think this is what I want right now, because I didn't necessarily want to get married, but also I wanted to be open to the idea of falling in love, and who knows how I would have felt by the end of it.
Right.
But it took me about 3 episodes to realize he is not marriage material for me. And for anyone, I guess.
Okay, that was my next question was, when do you know? And then if you know, do you have to keep it quiet? Because then everybody will be like, she's not here for the right reasons.
What's so funny about our season is that I'm not sure any girl was really into him. Like, even Emily, who is like an angel on earth.
Yeah.
We would all talk about how he was a robot, and Emily would do it too. So like, I don't know if it was that we were all such good friends too, if that has an impact on it.
Right.
I don't know if you remember the final 2 from our season, but like the actual villain for us was Chantel, who was the other person in the final 2.
Oh.
But she got a wonderful edit. Like, no one would know that. She was the meanest person in the house.
No
Like,
way.
at one point, I think I even told producers, I was like, if I stay, like, we might actually get in a fight.
Wow. Okay, I'm like Googling this because I'm so curious. I forget everybody season to season. Like once there's a new season, I have forgotten literally everybody.
Michelle Money was the villain of our season.
That's
and
right.
she wasn't. She was an angel. She was so nice. She would do all of our hair and makeup before a rose ceremony. I mean, would she say things that were annoying? Sure, but that doesn't mean she was the villain of our season. Chantel was the one that, I mean, I wish I could remember like everything mean she said to us. But then it's funny too, because after the season, I've talked to her so many times and now she's lovely. I just think she's one of those people where she was uber competitive and she really wasn't there to make friends with any of us.
Right. Wow. And so that's where it really goes back to this edit idea. You can really get edited totally different than everybody experienced you in the house.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have to hope that it goes well. But that's what I always caution people against is don't give them that material. Because even if you say just like one little thing wrong, they're going to cut everything else you said and focus in on that one thing you said wrong. And what happens too a lot is you'll have to sit down with producers and do these ITMs all the time, which is like an in the moment interview.
Okay.
And sometimes you're just so tired of talking about your feelings or how you feel about a situation that a producer will say what they want you to say.
Oh.
And then they want you to repeat it back. And that's when you have to be careful because those aren't your thoughts. And they're really just trying to get you to say something.
So how would that go?
Well, they would be like, you know, how do you feel about what Michelle said before the date? And you just be like, you know, it wasn't a big deal to me. And they could be like, well, no, go a little bit more into detail about that. Like, did you want to punch her in the face when she said that? And then you can't say anything. You can't repeat back any part of that because then that's what they're going to use. So you have to be like, no, I would never do that. You can't say, no, I would not punch her in the face because then they'll just take that punch her in the face part.
Wow. How did you know that? Did you realize that pretty quickly? So you didn't do those things or did you slip up a couple times and then realize that? How did you learn that?
I realized that actually after it was a soundbite like that because Michelle had a black eye. She woke up with a black eye. Whoa. And I think I said something about punching, but it was because a producer had asked me something like that. Mm-hmm. And then I was just joking and I was like, I mean, I wish I did it myself, but then they used it.
Oh, and I mean,
luckily enough, I had a good edit, so it didn't make me look bad. But then I noticed them doing it more in conversation and I don't know, something clicked. And I just wish that more people knew that producers don't have your best interests at heart always.
Like, do you think how excited do you think the producers were on last season when Kelsey had champagne spray in her face? Like that moment to me was, we rewound it like just about a dozen times, and I feel like that was production gold for them.
Oh yeah. I can imagine them in the whole like green room where they're all watching like all the different conversations that are happening and just knowing that was gold.
Yeah. That's so messed up to be one of those people. I don't understand how, who am I to talk? I'm the one watching it and I'm like, I can't understand how they could watch, people's conversations and then make a show of it, but I'll watch it. But there's something like creepy about the trying to manipulate it that kind of turns me off.
Yeah.
So you verified for me that they do take your phones. So what is that like? And do you guys get them back at all? And if not, how do you have any interaction with like the real world and people that actually love you?
I mean, unless something has changed, they took mine as soon as I arrived to the hotel, and they sequester you for 2 to 3 days before the season starts. So you just sit in your hotel room with no phone. You can't get on the computer. They would take us out of our rooms for like 15-minute intervals where they'd let you go into the gym, but you can't do anything for 15 minutes in the gym.
Wow.
And we'd have to get all of our food as room service. And then sometimes production would come in and talk to us, but you're in a room by yourself, not talking to anyone. So by the time you're released, you will talk to anyone and everyone.
Are they doing that on purpose, or like what is their reasoning? Or do they tell you like, now you're going to go through a deprogramming couple of days? Like, does it feel shady, or did it make sense?
I think after the second day, it started making sense because I was just like, I would find anyone interesting at this point. You know,
Yeah.
like I would really want any guy to pay attention to me. Like, it doesn't matter who it is.
Oh my God, this is so bad. It's just like deprivation. Like there's a level of human torture that happens to like then put you in a headspace where you're like, nobody loves me. I'll take whatever. And then they're like, and this is Juan Pablo. And you're like, he sounds perfectly reasonable. And I bring him up because I couldn't even watch his season. There's like, these guys are hard for me to watch anyway. But that guy was a guy I just knew I couldn't even do. But you know what? I think I saw in one of the things that I was looking up yesterday about you mentioned something about liking Ari, and Ari was the only guy, almost the only guy, and he was from quite a while ago, so I don't totally remember. There could have been things he did and said that now are super cringy, but I was a huge Ari fan. I loved him.
It's funny because after Emily's season, I really wanted The Bachelor to become Ari.
Yeah.
But then I met Sean Lowe in person.
Ugh.
And then I think I actually, I texted a producer, and believe me, my feelings about Sean have actually changed since this time. But I texted someone from production. I was like, if you don't choose Sean, you're crazy. Because there was something about him back then that wasn't like super crazy godlike.
Yeah.
And he was like very funny.
Wow.
I don't know. I would say he was one of my better guy friends in Bachelor Nation.
Okay.
And he stopped following me like on all social media platforms. And I'm pretty sure it's because like I'm so outspoken about my political beliefs.
Yeah.
And so I called him out on it, and he was just like, oh, I'm just following like friends and family now. And I was like, okay, yeah, I get it.
Oh,
I can see who you follow.
Yeah, seriously, dude, we're not idiots here. Yeah, he was one. I mean, like I said, I remember so few, but that name, I'm immediately like, oh, that guy was the worst. Like just the most milk toast. Like I couldn't even get a lady boner. Like I can never ever get a lady boner on these shows for any of these guys almost. And that guy was just a boner killer all around. So it's good to know that he's still, even his personality still continues to be a boner killer. That's amazing.
It's so funny too that he ended up with Catherine, because I think she's wonderful.
Yeah, I liked her.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, they're all the most mediocre white guys
Yes.
ever. And this is like already getting too much into, I know we'll go here later, but like Chris Harrison made a point recently where he's just like, whenever we find the right black guy, we'll finally have a black bachelor. And I'm just like, what? Why can't we have a mediocre black guy? Like, just like all the white guys we've ever had. Like, why does it have to be the best black guy ever? Like, that makes no sense.
That makes me enraged inside, because that is just straight up racism. That's the like, oh, there's different rules and we don't want one of those kind. We want one of this kind. Meanwhile, the most awful white dudes are on that show. Oh man. You brought up Chris Harrison, which is a question that I think all of us have. So is Chris Harrison the bro that he seems like he's got all of your best interests in mind, or is he slimy?
I've had so many different feelings about Chris. And my first impression of him was after a girl got kicked off named Madison, who was in our house, who wore the vampire fangs. I don't know if you remember her.
I don't.
He came in and was kind of like bad-mouthing her. And I don't know why, but that really bothered me. I was just like, that's not your place. You know? Like, just stick to coming in when you have to and saying the same lines that we always hear you say. Like, don't come in and badmouth one of our friends.
Yeah, that's weird.
And then I went to Emily's finale. Ashley, my friend from the show, and I got invited to be on there. I'm not even sure why we got asked to be on there. But I ended up, Chris Harrison came and asked me a question during the show. And then afterwards, it kind of seemed like he was hitting on me. Later on, Ashley and JP told me that he wanted to go on a double date with me.
Whoa.
And I was just like, okay, but only because Ashley and JP are going to. Like, I think I would feel really weird just going on a date with him by myself. And then, I'm not kidding, 30 minutes before the date, they supposedly got in like a big fight and then did not come. But then I felt like a jerk, and we were going to Babbo in New York, which now I would not go to Babbo because Mario Batali. But at the time, I was like, yes, Babbo, great restaurant. I will go with Chris Harrison. But I invited 2 of my friends to go with us, so it was still going to be a double date.
And did you go?
Yeah, he was perfectly lovely. But one of my guy friends who was on the date, Graham Bunn, he's actually from the show too.
Okay.
And he was just like, I feel weird being here, because he definitely wanted this to just be a date between y'all. And like nothing happened. We didn't kiss or anything like that, but we stayed in touch through text. And then I saw him at Ashley and JP's wedding, and I brought a date who is now my husband. And
Aww.
Chris Harrison was so mad at me. Like,
oh my God.
Came up to me, he was just like, you move on quickly. And I was just like, whoa, Chris Harrison, like we went on one date.
Oh my God. I love this for so many reasons. Chris Harrison was on a group date and he hated it. It's like, fuck you, Chris Harrison, even though I like partially as a viewer, like I love Chris Harrison. But also like you've witnessed people being in the most awkward situations and now you have to be in it and it sucks. And then also I feel like the power you had in that moment, like you could have been like, listen, Chris, I just really feel like it's not working out. You know, I think I'm going to have to send you home. Like that you didn't.
No rose for you.
Yeah, that you didn't elicit that power. I would have felt so tempted. But then that he was all butthurt about it. Oh my God, this is good. This is great. I'm just like, my jaw is just dropped and I'm just enjoying every second of this if you can't tell.
It was wild. It was wild.
So then what's your status now with Chris Harrison? Like, is he friendly? Do you see him at stuff? Do you even go to stuff anymore?
I get asked a lot if, like, I think production doesn't like me because of some things that have happened. And I always tell people, production has never said anything bad about me. Even Millsy, who's one of the, head producers, he always says, like, really nice things about me. Chris Harrison shades me in interviews. I mean, he hasn't done it in a long time, but also because I feel like I haven't been, like, super critical lately. But he's shaded me a couple of times in interviews. And I always just want to be like, oh, shut up. We went on a date.
Yeah, you're just pissed because you got rejected. You didn't get the rose, Chris Harrison.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, wow. This is like, now next time we watch a season, if there's a palatable Bachelor, now I'll know this information and I will have such a different view of Chris Harrison because he seems so invested. I mean, I'm sure there's a part of it that he gets into his work and he is, but he just seems so like, hey man, like I'm really bummed for you. Like, you know, he seems like he's in it, but of course he's a human being. Who knew? Who knew Chris Harrison was a human? Okay, so this is like the question that I would have for a Survivor contestant is the same thing in a way, is period related. So just how annoying is it to be on your period and having to flirt with some douchey dude on camera? And then also, how long does it take for all of your periods to sync up and then have Hell Week for everyone?
No, that was a real thing. Our periods all synced up. It was crazy. And also, I mean, I don't know if this is getting like too like gross or whatever.
Not possible.
I don't mind talking
Not
about
possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you're in the house, you really cannot eat like healthy food or anything like that. You're just kind of eating whatever like is put in front of you. And you're mic'd all of the time. And so you can only take off your mic whenever you're about to go to the bathroom or something like that.
Okay.
And I really feel like that puts a lot of stress on your system. So many girls could not go to the bathroom regularly. And there was one girl who, I'm not kidding, she gained 10 pounds because she could not go to the bathroom.
Of just poop. Oh, God.
Of just poop. And so finally she was like, you have to get me some laxatives. Like, this is not comfortable.
Oh.
So that was another thing that happened that I think a lot of people don't think about is...
Yes. Well, I'm always thinking about it.
Well, that's definitely something that happens that I did not expect when I went on.
But so then when you guys would get on your periods, was everybody like, oh, we cannot even deal with you today, Brad? And then Chris Harrison would be like, all right, one of you lucky ladies gets to suck this guy's dick. And then you're all like, no, her, not me. But then do you have to feign it? Like for the camera, what were those period weeks like?
Those are the weeks that you see everyone just being in a horrible mood.
Right.
Those are the weeks that you see like someone has the biggest pimple on their face and they can't cover it up. And that's for sure the week that someone will get a one-on-one date with him. Because they're already feeling badly about themselves. So that is the thing. Production's always looking for like little things like that to really mess with people. So
when I'm watching this, these cocktail parties to me seem like they go from like 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. because you'll see some of the supposedly late night interviews after somebody gets dumped, and it's like it's at sunrise. What is happening here? Why is the timing of these parties so late? And it seems like one of these forms of torture, like, well, if we keep them up long enough and we give them enough really strong alcohol, there's going to be good TV. Is that really what's happening? And is that the timeline? Like, why are people getting dumped at sunrise?
I'd say the first 4 happen from like 6 or 7 p.m. until 7 a.m.
Oh my gosh.
And it's just because they want to get the Bachelor talking one-on-one with people. They want to get all the girls talking to each other. They want to do one-on-one interviews with most people, with the Bachelor, with the contestants. And then also they have to do the rose ceremony, which takes a really long time.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. One thing too is that you can't wear a watch. And you also don't have your phone, so you really never know what time it is.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And
normal.
I mean, I can never sleep. So I think I typically got like 4 to 5 hours of sleep a night when I was in the house, maybe less. And the rose ceremonies are as awful as you could possibly think of because I don't know about you, but I really hate wearing heels or like just being in like a very uncomfortable cocktail dress.
Oh, yeah.
And to do that for almost 12 hours is so miserable.
Oh, yeah.
Like there were so many girls who during the rose ceremony, they would almost faint because they would lock their knees out when they were standing up.
Totally.
Those were always everyone's least favorite nights.
I bet.
You did not look forward to them at all.
Ugh, this is like torture, I swear. Everything you keep telling me, I'm like, this sounds terrible. What are your biggest criticisms with the show?
Oh, wow. Just in terms of like what production does to us, or like even now is...
Now, I guess I would say like looking back on it, when at the beginning you mentioned something about that you've been critical of the show. In what ways have you been critical of the show, or what things stick out to you? I'm sure there's a lot, and we've gone over a lot of those, but if you had to like distill it down to like 1 or 2 of the most problematic things about the show, what would you say those are?
I mean, I think the biggest one is that I just no longer feel like the show is representative of its audience. There's no diversity, either in terms of skin color or even weight.
Right, or gender, or gender
Yes.
identity, or homosexual, like queer, none of that. Yeah, it's very binary.
Right. And I mean, I would love a season of like The Gay Bachelor. I mean, it would be so good. I don't know why. How many Bachelor in Paradise shows can we get?
Right.
Where we're just seeing like the same contestants come on time after time. I mean, I know you love Bachelor in Paradise, but
I do.
At the same time, for me, I'm just like, I'm so tired of some of these people. Like, I would just rather get
for sure
new characters.
And you know what was actually really interesting is I think the last season they had Demi on there who's bisexual, and that was one of the most interesting parts of it, I thought, because it was just something new. It was something new, and I was also really surprised that Bachelor Nation was even going to go there. And my husband and I were like, well, of course they went there with 2 women, because there's still that like, oh, that's sexy for men. And we talked ad nauseum about if there were 2 men, Bachelor would never let that fly, because then dudes would be like, I'm not watching that shit, or at least probably the kind of dudes that maybe Bachelor draws out anyway. But I thought that I really loved that newness of it and something different. And I think you're so right that if they could get a little bit more diverse, they could maybe breathe some new life into this kind of dying out franchise. Although maybe it really isn't dying out. Maybe it's, more popular than ever. I don't know. This last season with Pete, the boringest pilot on the planet, and Madison, I liked her. And then I was like, you signed up for this show where this dude gets to bang someone in a fantasy suite and now you're mad about it. Anyway, so yeah, there's a lot in that. What was your take on The Bachelor in Paradise with having Demi and her girlfriend? And then also, did you hate Pete the pilot like I did?
So I love the Demi storyline, and I don't know, have you seen Too Hot to Handle?
Yes. Oh yeah, that's like gutter entertainment that I'm here for. So yes.
But I love that. I loved how there was a character on there where they didn't say she was like bi or anything like that, but she was like, I'll go for dudes and I'll go for girls. Like, I don't care. And I was just like, this is what the show needs.
Yes.
Like, we just need something other than the person who's lost a parent tragically. Now I even feel like the sad stories we get are someone's parents divorcing. And I'm just like, what is that as a tragedy? Like, everyone's parents are divorced. Like,
right.
What? I don't get it now. And so I feel like they're just relying on the same tropes. Like, it needs an injection of new life. And I don't know what that is, but I'm hoping that with Claire's season, which I don't know if you've heard what they're doing with hers, but it's going to take place in one location. So they're thinking everyone's going to stay at the same resort. Because I don't think they're going to do it at the house. And they can't really go anywhere for dates. So it's really going to be like Love Island or even like earlier seasons of The Bachelor where they didn't rely on them going on these like fancy locations or these really super crazy dates.
Right.
But one thing I thought would be really interesting is if right now she's taking a look at her contestants on social media.
Yeah.
So that she has kind of like a feel for them. And I would love if they give her the option to eliminate some people before the season starts based on their social media. I just think that would be amazing. Or like even if America could vote on some of the contestants based on their social
but not
media.
a certain part of America. Like, that's the thing is I feel like
true.
America has voted and didn't do a good job. Let's not trust America for a while.
That's true. That's so true.
But I love the idea of having like a pre-screening that maybe the contestant would get to look at that and be like, oh, total douche, racist, sexist, drunk, but then the show's like, but we would have no contestants. Nobody would make the cut.
True. Well, and I just think it's so wild at this point that there's been so many social media like snafus that they don't know to go through their social media at this point and get rid of things that are bad. It's just so wild to me. Or I guess, if you're a racist, like you just don't care if you're a racist.
That's the thing. I don't think you think it's bad until somebody calls you out, and then, which is just insane to me. But I think that's how people can stay in those hateful beliefs is they actually think that they're right.
Yeah. I have a lot of thoughts about what the show can do better. I wish that they would pay contestants. I think that
wait.
actually misses out.
Wait a minute. These people do not get paid.
Nothing.
Holy shit. Oh my God. Wow. I don't know why everybody else is probably like, yeah, Brandy, idiot. Of course they don't. But I was thinking one of the only reasons you go on this, aside from maybe fame or love, is that you at least get paid like 10 or 20 grand. But you're saying there's literally nothing.
Oh, no. The lead gets paid. And then if you go on Bachelor in Paradise, I think you get maybe like $400 a week or something like that. But if you go on The Bachelor, I know it put me into debt. When I got off, I had $15, not joking, because I still had to pay for rent on my apartment. I still had to, pay loans for my college.
Yeah, and you can't make money. You're not working.
No, exactly.
Wow. Okay. So paying contestants, yes, that sounds important.
Yes. Well, and I think that is a reason why we don't get a huge pool to choose from in terms of contestants, because not that many people can just give up their lives from September to the beginning of December.
Right.
That's just not an option for most people. And so whenever people are complaining that the show doesn't have people with actual careers, well, that's why, because most people can't quit their jobs to go on the show. But I think that if you did get a little bit of money, at least to keep you afloat, then we would have a better selection of contestants.
Yes. That seems imperative.
Yeah.
Well, I'm learning a lot. I'm learning a lot here today. Would you ever be on Bachelor in Paradise? I think at one point you had said they had asked you to and you turned it down. Will you tell me about that?
Okay, so back then it was actually Bachelor Pad.
Right. Yes.
It wasn't Bachelor in Paradise, which I actually think Bachelor Pad was better than Bachelor in Paradise. One, because you had like a way to win money. But then also people were really on their worst behavior because money was involved and because you really did have to scheme to try to screw over other people. I think one of the most iconic scenes in Bachelor history is whenever Nick screwed over Rachel for the money. He just like kept it instead of sharing it with her. And
right.
I mean, I think he's a douchebag for doing that. Don't get me wrong. But like also that's just such a memorable moment to me.
Right. Yeah, right. It was like the producers were thinking the only thing that we don't have here is, well, we've got the basic need to be loved and we've got the competitive spirit. Let's add money. That's about the only other thing we could add in here that would just, set this thing even more on fire.
And that's why, I mean, not to keep on going back to Too Hot to Handle, but like, that's why I think that show was really cool too.
Yes. Well, so was there a time before you got married that you would have considered Bachelor in Paradise?
So I actually really did consider it when they asked me. I had some conditions though. Like the only way I would do it is if Frank came back. That was my person who I was like, if he does the show, like I will definitely do it.
Hold up. Googling Frank right now. Frank Bachelor. I know when I see him, I'll know. My brain, come on, images. Oh, no way.
From Ali Fedotowsky's season.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think I liked him.
Yeah. I mean, I had met him at like a Las Vegas reunion and I just thought he was like really cute and so sweet. And I was like, okay, I could see teaming up with him. That would make me want to do it. But then also I was very thankful for the good edit that I got. And I just knew like my competitive nature would get the best of me on Bachelor Pad. So I was just like, no, let's just keep the good edit.
You're smart. One good edit is already one more good edit than most people probably get. So
no one gets two.
Yeah. Well, so tell us where you're at right now. So you finally found love?
Yes, and I actually found it through The Bachelor, which is kind of crazy. I was at a bar probably in 2011, so like a year after the show, and this guy came up to me and he was like, hey, I remember you from The Bachelor. You were my favorite contestant. But I had a boyfriend at the time, so I blew him off. But he realized that the guy he was at the bar with was dating my roommate.
Okay.
And so he begged them for a year to set us up. And then me and that guy broke up. And then my friends like set me up with him. And we've been dating ever since. So because he had watched the show, he recognized me and we ended up getting together. And then we really hadn't been dating that long whenever I was like, hey, do you want to come to this wedding with me? The only thing is it's going to be televised.
Right.
And he was totally cool with it, which you would be surprised. Like, people were really not cool with the whole reality aspect. Like, in the previous relationship, he really did not like that. He hated that whole world. He didn't like want to get to know other Bachelor people. And then Steve, my husband, he had watched the show for so long that he knew who everyone was. So that weekend was that much more fun because he wasn't being a jerk about meeting Trista or he was like more excited than I was.
So he like passed the Bachelor test.
Yeah, he did with flying colors.
And so one of the things that you've been really open about on social media is your journey with fertility. Will you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I feel like I've always been really open about it, or just like kids in general, because I'm a nanny, and I've been a nanny since I was 22.
Okay.
And I'm 35 now. So a long time.
Yeah.
In all of my jobs, I've seen the struggles that women can go through in trying to have kids. So I really felt like it was something that whenever I started trying to have kids, I wanted to be as open and honest as possible to help others if they were going through the same type of thing.
Yeah.
And so I had a copper IUD. And my best friend got pregnant, and she was like, I want us to do this together. Like, could you and Steve start trying to have kids now too? So I took my copper IUD out and actually got pregnant the next day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It was a complete surprise, but of course, like, we were very excited. But then 8 weeks later, we went in and they couldn't find the heartbeat. So that was like very devastating. My sister was actually at the appointment with me, and she felt awful. After that, the doctors were like, just try normally. We don't want to like put too much pressure on you, but try naturally for 6 months, and then we'll discuss next steps. So we tried naturally for 6 months. Nothing happened. I feel like once we started trying again, they found some cysts some polyps. Had to go in, have that surgery. So at this point, I've had 2 DNCs. And then at that point, we decided to do an IUI. Did not work. And then we had a medicated IUI that we were in the process of whenever COVID happened. A couple of days before I was set to do my trigger shot, they actually just canceled my cycle. So it's been a long journey.
Yeah. How have you been coping with it's already going through infertility? There's so many unknowns, and you have to surrender to shit you don't want to surrender to. But then having COVID on top of it, and then having even that hope being dashed, how are you coping with that?
At this point, I think what Steve and I are trying to focus on is the fact that we're healthy, and that we haven't lost any family members to this, to just be thankful for that. They did give the go-ahead that New Yorkers could start fertility treatments again.
Okay.
But I don't 100% feel a lot of safety in our healthcare system right now, just because there's still a ton of people in the hospitals, and I don't know if I even feel responsible doing that right now. I just feel like this is not the time to be worried about having a kid. I don't know. And maybe that's naive at my age, but I don't know.
I would be thinking the same exact things as you. I would be thinking like, okay, this isn't ideal. And do I seem reckless that I'm going to try to do this right now with everything so up in the air? But then there's a part that's like, if this is all we have, then fuck it. Like, I mean, the one thing this has shown is we don't know how much time we have, and nature sort of has us by the balls. And so I can see it going both ways. I would totally be stuck between the two of them. And I think I would be worried too about needing a medical system that seems to be somewhat broken at the moment.
Yeah. I don't feel like completely hopeless about it. I still feel like I'm pretty optimistic, but at the same time, everything just seems so up in the air right now that it's just wild.
Totally. I know with my son, it took us almost 2 years. And same with my daughter. It took us quite a while. I hesitate to even say anything to you because it's so hard when you're in it to hear anybody's stories, because so many people want to give you stories of like, oh, here's how it happened for us, so this may happen for you. And then you just know, like, there's like, I don't know if it will happen like that for me. So I always found it really hard to hear people's well-intended stories. So I even hesitate saying this to you, but I will say that the first time around, I wasn't really open to getting any fertility help because I just sort of thought it'll happen naturally or whatever. And then the second time, I had that same mindset. And then at some point, I was like, okay, I need answers. I need to know things. I need to know what's broken and I need to know what I can fix and all this stuff. Whereas the first time around, I just assumed it was me and my cycle. So I went and did acupuncture and did yoga and was really like working on me, thinking I was the problem. So the second time around, we both got tested and it turns out I wasn't the problem. And that was such an interesting eye-opening moment for me because I was like, oh my God, I've spent so much of this fertility journey trying to quote unquote fix myself. And meanwhile, this guy over here, it's like, we need to fix him. So it was that was like a helpful moment of clarity. And also I felt so much frustration about it, not about him, but just about why did I just assume it was me and I needed to let go and I needed to not be stressed and all the things people tell you that make you want to punch somebody in the throat. It was so relieving to me that it wasn't me and that, we maybe had some other options. So I just want to say I've been in a similar position and I know it's hard. And so I just wish you guys the best with it and, wish you to find you on the other side of it, whenever that happens. I know that is a rough journey.
Oh, well, thank you. What's really funny about that, what you're saying, is I kind of took the opposite approach. And so I had been going to Parsley Health. They're a functional medicine clinic. And I knew my hormonal levels were really just out of whack because I've had skin problems for forever. And I went in and made a plan with my doctor where we were going to get me pregnancy ready within 2 years and get all of my hormones balanced. They actually figured out that I had an underactive thyroid, which was really key to know in the process of getting pregnant.
Yeah.
So then whenever the miscarriage happened, I was just like, damn it. I've like been prepping for 2 years. Like what could possibly be wrong? And then the only thing I look back and really wish I wouldn't have done is that 6 months where they were like, just try naturally. I actually wish I would have been more aggressive because then at the end of that 6 months is when they found the stuff in my uterus. And I wish I would have been a little bit more aggressive with them and been like, no, let's try to figure out what's wrong with me. Because then at the end of that 6 months, that's when they found out I had a blocked fallopian tube. Also, that's when they found the polyps. So,
right. Because you would have known that earlier, but it's so hard to know, right? Because it's something that's so many people go through and it doesn't happen for everybody immediately. So it's like, you want to give it this breathing room and especially like not be focused on it. But then when that time goes by, like that's kind of how I felt the second time around is I was like, I'm not going to let all this time go by and then get checked. I'm just going to do it now. And even if it turns out that we find no new information, at least I'll know that.
Yeah. I would say, like, be your own advocate.
Yes. Yeah,
like,
always.
I almost feel like people are always like, don't stress about it. But if there's something in your mind that's like, yeah, I'm going to stress about it. Let's be more aggressive with figuring this out. Then, like, push your doctor to do it.
Exactly. Well, I guess in closing, I'd love to ask you, how do you think being on The Bachelor changed you? What did you learn from it, or what did you take away from it in terms of, if I hadn't been on The Bachelor, I would not be the same person? What did you walk away with or without?
Oh, wow. I think that the show, in a weird way, taught me that my voice mattered and that I don't even think we talked about this, but after my season, I started a blog where I kind of lifted the curtain on some of the things that they did behind the scenes. And I tried to get people to like not be so hard on contestants.
Okay.
And that's when I found that me being really vulnerable and being honest about things really resonated with people. And I think that has really guided everything that I've done since that point.
Wow.
And there's no reason for people to remember me at all. Like I said, I finished 11th. And usually that does not make people stick out in your mind. But I think it has been because I'm willing to be open and honest and vulnerable. So you don't always have to be a sellout once you get off the show. You can actually stand up for the things you believe in and make a life different than being a reality contestant. Did that answer it?
Yeah, that's amazing because it could be so easy to just fall in line with everybody and have the Bachelor sheen and really not talk about anything. But like we've talked about, this was a form of torture that you went through, and to be the person who's going to call it what it is and say the true thing, which is, hey, there's some problems with this, and this is actually how it went. And just to be honest, to free other people who felt the same way or who want to know what it's like. I mean, obviously I'm all about that. And I so value that. And I think that that's probably what makes you so functional without The Bachelor, is that it seems like if you stick with it and that's your only thing that you know, like you have to kind of keep those things under wraps and worship the Bachelor Nation. But if you can have a healthy point of view on it and be honest about it, I feel like that frees you, which is pretty amazing.
I completely agree. I don't know why more people don't do it. I mean, like I said, I think that they don't want to bite the hand that feeds them, or they want to be on a future show, but I never worried about that.
Yeah, I mean, and it's really it speaks to the courage that you have to bite the hand that feeds you, because I mean, maybe I don't know if you think this consciously or not, but just knowing without this thing, I still matter in the world. So I'm going to say the thing. And if the hand wants to then push me out and I'm no longer a part of this, I don't need it because I have value other than that. I mean, that's a really big deal. And obviously there's not that many people from that group, or probably from a lot of reality shows, that are capable of doing that. So like, huge props to you for that. That's a big deal.
Thank you. I mean, it doesn't feel like it in the moment, but
yeah, but it really truly is. So where can people find you now, and like what fun things are you doing that you want people to know about?
So right now you can always find me on my Instagram at Ashley Spivey. And then I have 2 arms of my book club. The first one started on Facebook, and it's actually #Spivey's book emoji club. I made it hard to find on purpose just because I didn't want like too many people.
Okay.
But I know a lot of people are really against Facebook. And honestly, if it wasn't so successful there, I would delete my whole Facebook profile because I think Facebook is really evil too.
Okay, yeah.
So if you hate Facebook, you can also find it on Instagram at Spivey's Book Club. What else? I'm on Twitter at Ashley Spivey. I mainly just live tweet the show. I find that Twitter is such a negative place, so I don't really say that much there.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you feel like needs to be covered? Anything that we didn't talk about?
I'd say maybe one of the biggest contributions I've made to the Bachelor world is that I got them to do deeper background checks, because I found a pretty big hole in what they were doing. And what had happened is Reality Steve was sent an email, and it said, you might want to check into one of the contestants from South Boston. And then that's all they said. So we were just like, what? What does that have to do with anything? And then he emailed the person back and he was like, can you give me any other information? And they were just like, no. Whatever person is from South Boston, they were at the courthouse today. You should look more into them. So Reality Steve was just like, this is not what I do. If you're not going to tell me like what it is, I have no interest in this. So I told him, I was like, well, I'd love to look more into it. Actually, before I became a nanny, I was taking the LSAT because I wanted to go to law school. Yeah. So I was just like, this is right up my alley. So I called the clerk of court there, and they told me that they could not give any information online or on the phone, but I could call the press office for the courthouse. So then at this point, I had figured out that it had to be a contestant named Lincoln Adam, because he was the only one from Boston. So I sent the press office an email and said, hey, can you tell me anything about what Lincoln Adam was doing in court yesterday? And they sent me back a thing. And sure enough, he had been arrested for groping a woman on a booze cruise. And so
wow.
that was something they had missed in this background check. And I think that's something that's pretty important.
Yeah,
why would
just
you?
a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So I went forward with that information once I actually, my sister-in-law lives in Boston. So I was like, can you go down to this courthouse and get me photocopy all of the papers on this court case? Just so I'm not just saying what this press office sent me. I have actual papers that I can show everyone this happened.
Yes.
So a lot of it was blacked out because obviously there's a victim involved. But yeah, that's how I uncovered that they really were not doing deep background checks on these contestants.
And then did he get sent home because of that? What happened?
I found all that out after the season was done airing.
Oh, got it. Got it.
And so one thing I actually was very disappointed in the show about, not only that they let him on the season, but two, they did not completely erase him from the show once this came out. They wanted to use him in this part where he was talking about flat earthers. And so I guess they were using him for comedic value. But I feel like once you find out that someone's done something like that, you should cut them out with editing, or at least put groper underneath their name. If you're going to keep them on there. Yeah. It's just I don't know if you watch RuPaul's Drag Race, but there's a contestant this season who he had catfished some other people he was involved with, I guess sexually, and sexually assaulted them. And they didn't find out to the end of the season. But then what they've done is they went back in editing and they haven't really been giving him any screen time. So I didn't know why ABC couldn't do that too.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. Ashley, this has I feel like I need to be almost quarantined like you were at the beginning of The Bachelor. I need to just have a couple days to just soak in all of this information. I so appreciate you. I appreciate your point of view too. This sort of, years later, and I don't know, just this really thoughtful, critical point of view. So thank you so much for coming on here today. I would imagine my listeners are as excited as I am and are going to go tell all the people that they know all these insider little secrets. So thank you for giving us that gift.
No, this was so fun, really. I'm sure there's so many things we didn't talk about. So if you ever want to know anything else.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's keep it open for a part 2, and I'm just going to keep writing questions that come to mind. But man, just the whole Chris Harrison part, I really need to sit with that for a little bit. I don't feel like there's anything left to say. This episode just said it all. Harrison on an awkward date. Just magic. Oh, wait, there is something. Sometime during the pandemic, Ashley got pregnant and is expecting a boy. So a huge congrats to her. I wonder if she'll name him Frank. If you enjoy the podcast, chances are you'll love my novel, especially right now while you might need some validation, humor, and a wild trip to Vegas if only in your mind. Titled Adult Conversation, a Novel, it's a darkly comedic story about the relentlessness of modern motherhood, where the main character seeks an answer to the question, is motherhood broken or am I? After a series of relatable mom wins and failures, she and her therapist end up on a Thelma and Louise-style road trip to Vegas, where they are tempted and tested while finding lost pieces of themselves that motherhood swallowed up. You can find it in all the usual places, or you can go to my website, adultconversation.com, to find out more. As always, thanks for listening.
Here I am back at the goddamn Zoom.